Here's the parts and pieces of the EPAS kit. This is a separate purchase from I Did It, which is steering column. It's 8-position tilt. It's paintable. Here is the motor, gearbox, torque sensor, and on the end here you can see where the universal joint fits in, and this then slides into this here, which gives you your collapsible steering and the mounting of this to the firewall. My car is a 1966 coupe, and this is what holds the original steering column into or onto the dash. You remove that and replace it with this piece here. And then this becomes a collapsible steering column or shaft, which gives you a little bit of extra safety in these cars. The brains of the controller is this module here. It's got a potentiometer on it that allows you to set as little or as much assist to the steering mechanism as you desire. This wire here goes into the ignition side of the switch. These wires here just plug into the unit itself here, and then this wire here will plug into here. This wire then goes to the battery, and it's recommended that you put either a fuse or a breaker on this system. I have chose to put a breaker on mine. So that's kind of the way the kit comes. And then the other option here is the way this goes together. You have to line up, and you probably are not going to be able to see very clearly, but this shaft in here has a double D on it also, and you line this up with your EPAS unit, and it'll go together just like such. And when you get that aligned, you just push that on and it will line up, and then this hole here, right here. So in the instructions, when you look at this, they're going to recommend that you thread lock all the Allen screws, just for vibration standpoint. So I'm using a medium strength thread locker, and we'll lock it all down. Now on the large universal that goes onto the gearbox, it does not require thread locker per se, because you have these locking nuts. But I think once I get everything adjusted, I will probably put thread locker on it anyway, just to make sure. And that's all it is right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reinstall the control module into the car, and I'll film that for you also. So one of the things you have to do when putting this EPAS system on is you have to remove the gearbox and cut the shaft off, and then you'll notice to the right what they've done to modify that, and it's called a double D dimension on the shaft after it's been cut off. and that's so that you can put the universal joint on and lock it in place. Okay, we're installing the control module, and it's going to be mounted right behind the vents that go up to the defrosters, and it just mounts as such on this wall. Make sure you get your grounds hooked up. That's very important. So all right, we're back now. It's mounted, and I'll feed this wire through the firewall here. Hopefully I will. And get it ready to mount. Easier said than done. You'd think after me doing this about 4 times I would have this down. And there we go. So here on the clutch assembly, I had the springs mounted in here, and was causing a bit of a problem with rubbing or getting the alignment that I needed on the motor, because it's clocked in at about a 10 o'clock position. So what I did was I took the spring off, drilled a pilot hole here, drilled out a 3/8 inch hole, and then filed off the edges there so I could move that spring over. I think that's going to give me enough clearance now that I'll be able to get in there and get everything lined back up so that the emergency brake handle will mount back as it should. So that's the reason I did that. So I'm going to put this in. I'm not going to, this is pretty straightforward. So I'm going to put this in, and I'll get back with you when I start installing the steering column. Install of the EPAS, and I did it, steering column into the 66 Mustang. As you can see in the video, I have a bottle jack, and I made a little bracket so that I could hold the steering column up while bolting it in place, and so that worked out very nice for me on that. I also took on the studs that hold the steering column in place, I used some blue thread locker in order to lock them in place so I could get a good tight fit with plenty of threads on both ends. And so what I'm doing now is just tightening the bolts up. I've already clocked the steering column to the EPAS unit, and you noticed in the earlier part of the video where I made a change to the bracket that holds the clutch and brake pedal assembly with the spring. I moved the spring more towards the center of the mounting bracket so as to get a little extra room so I could clock the motor a little bit more towards the 11 o'clock position. One of the things that was not very clear in the instructions was that when you mount the emergency parking brake handle, you have to move it over one hole. There's 2 holes that hold it, and you have to move it over one hole, which is a little misaligned, but it works out okay. It still works okay, and that allows you to clear the motor and the gearbox so that you've got a nice clean fit on that, and that worked out, I think, really well. The next part of this is the just putting the steering wheel on. I'm still missing a part right now that I'm going to hopefully get to tomorrow and be able to finish up mounting the turn signal equipment, the steering wheel, and I've already tested the system with using the adjustment for different assist, and it works great.